Coming up on Bridge City News, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says even though Parliament is suspended, critical documents tied to the We Charity scandal will not disappear. Political reporter Brian Lilly explains what he believes is the main reason why Parliament was prorogued. And even though the CFL season was cancelled, that doesn't mean we won't see football in southern Alberta.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland spoke to the media about becoming Canada's first female finance minister. Freeland was given the portfolio following the resignation of Bill Morneau. She says she really hopes she can be an inspiration to other women.
I am conscious of the fact that I am Canada's first woman finance minister. It's about time that we broke that glass ceiling. And I'd like to say to all the Canadian women across our amazing country who are out there breaking glass ceilings, keep going. We are 100% with you. One of the hallmarks of our government has been an explicitly and proudly feminist agenda that has always been a part of our work. I have taken particular pride in.
Foreign Affairs Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne says proroguing or suspending Parliament and Chrystia Freeland becoming the new finance minister is all about moving forward amid the COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, I don't think there would be many people in Canada would disagree that what we're living through are unprecedented circumstances. I mean, we live it in our daily lives. We wear masks. We wonder about our kids going back to school. Jobs have been transformed. People work from a distance now, you know. Things have changed. And when things change in such a dramatic way, we need to have a reset. We need to have a rethink. And this is exactly what we intend as a government to present to Canadians, a plan for jobs, a plan for the economy, a plan to make sure that Canada would be as successful for the decades to come as we have been over time.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says even though he's proroguing Parliament, that doesn't necessarily mean that thousands of pages of documents on the We Charity scandal will simply disappear.
I will highlight that there was a number of documents that people were worried about not getting from the law clerk of the committees. I can say that we have released all those documents to the members of the committees so that they can spend their time going through those mountains of documents over the coming weeks so that they can continue to ask any questions they like on this issue. I have addressed these issues, my staff has addressed these, other ministers have addressed these issues in committees, and when Parliament resumes in the fall, there will be ample opportunities to continue to ask whatever questions that committees or members want to continue to do.
Political reporter Brian Lilly says the motivation behind Prime Minister Trudeau suspending Parliament until the end of September was so that he could shut down two committees which were putting the Liberals in a bad light.
There's nothing wrong with using the parliamentary procedure of proroguing Parliament. It's a chance to do a reset. It allows you to do another speech from the throne, reset committees. There are a host of reasons for why governments would do this. The bottom line is that the Trudeau Liberals are doing this to shut down the committees, be it the Finance Committee or the Ethics Committee, that are studying the We scandal, or the committee that the opposition forced on them to review the Canada-China relationship. All of these are embarrassing to the government right now. None of them are generating good headlines.
Mr. Lilly will have more on what the suspension of Parliament means for Canadians. That's coming up after Business News. A 10-year-old girl died and 7 others were injured following a head-on crash east of Jasper National Park yesterday. RCMP say it appears as though a truck driven by a man from BC crossed the center line on Highway 16 and collided with an SUV carrying 7 people from Edmonton. Police say 6 other people in the SUV were treated for non-life-threatening injuries. The 26-year-old driver of the pickup truck was not seriously hurt. Lethbridge police have issued an arrest warrant for a man wanted in connection with a hit-and-run last Wednesday. Police say following a North End accident in which both vehicles pulled over, a 37-year-old man was then hit. He was taken to the Chinook Hospital and later transferred to a Calgary hospital where he remains in serious but stable condition. Police are looking for 24-year-old Dylan Sokol of Lethbridge. He faces a number of charges including dangerous driving causing bodily harm. If you know where Sokol is, Call Crime Stoppers right away at 1-800-222-8477. The investigation into a massive fire in the Fairmont area in Lethbridge, which destroyed 2 homes and significantly damaged another, continue today. While the cause is yet to be determined, fire investigator Troy Hicks says the community's assistance kept everyone safe.
Firefighters were here quite late to put the fire out. The biggest thing with this that is just amazing to me is the response from the public, witnesses, people that tried to make sure, banging on doors, make sure no one was there. We have no injuries in these 3 fires, which is fantastic to see. We don't see that very often, so this is really good. The people get out. The fire is still under investigation. The first 2 houses here just behind me are obviously a total loss. They're gone. The third house suffered some pretty good heat damage, some water damage from putting the fire out.
The Blood Tribe in southern Alberta has cancelled all events for the rest of the summer and into the fall. Officials say they will not allow any indoor or outdoor public activities to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The First Nation already cancelled any annual summer activities, and any private events are required to get approval from Community Health. The Blood Tribe remains under a state of emergency and a community-wide curfew. Snow Ridge Stables paid a special visit to St. Therese Villa in Lethbridge. Seniors were able to enjoy the company of Hot Rod the horse and Wilson the pony. BCN's Loris Alexander has the details.
This is something we've wanted to do for a long time, to bring a little of the country and what some of these folks are most used to back to see them, maybe spark some little part of their memory or their heart, bring them a little bit of joy. This COVID has gone on a long time, and many of them haven't got out or had many visitors, and so we wanted to just bring a little bit of joy to their day.
Since we've been in lockdown, our residents have been very isolated, and so it's been really hard to give meaningful activities because we've had to limit so many things that they can do. And so being able to utilize our patios and have people come who are outside, are like here but outside, that they can engage with them has been really special.
Proudfoot says a lot of the residents connect with animals because of their past with farming, bringing back a lot of nostalgic memories.
In our memory care units, not all of our residents can word find properly, and not all talk anymore, and we have seen people speak who haven't spoke in a long time. Their eyes become clear, and you can see that their light in their eyes, it brings joy to them, like they remember something, they become present in the moment. So
for Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
It is National Potato Day. Now, to celebrate, Exhibition Park has set up a drive-in potato eatery as part of its Whoop Up Days festivities. BCN's Ainsley O'Reilly stopped by to check it out.
You won't find a potato like this anywhere else in the world. In honor of National Potato Day, Exhibition Park's chef Dave Little has created a signature potato exclusive to southern Alberta.
Instead of just being potato, I have lentils, pinto beans, and sweet green peas that's mixed with potato. So the whole thing is true southern Alberta between pulse and potato product. Southern Alberta is all about food. And so we wanted to develop something that was 100% southern Alberta. Like, there was nothing in this product that comes from anywhere else.
Pete Heck, Lethbridge Master Chef Canada hopeful, entered into the Couch Potato Food Fest contest. Exhibition Park wants people to post a photo of their best couch potato inspired dish.
I've been cooking with potatoes all week. Actually, we're getting kind of sick of potatoes, but I mean, like, we just keep, you can't really get that sick of them because I mean they're a staple with it at just about every meal. But yeah, the dish I made was a watercress potato salad with pickled radish and some local microgreens.
Chefs like Pete and the ones at Exhibition Park agree that it wouldn't be southern Alberta without potatoes.
On this entire plate, I would say the chili powder is the only thing that isn't southern Alberta.
Who doesn't love a good potato?
For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
Scoops of ice cream were passed from person to vehicle today at the Northbridge Senior Centre as part of their ice cream drive-thru event. As Micah Quinn explains, it was a great experience for seniors and others to experience a taste of a modified version of Whoop Up Days.
Black cherry, maple walnut, cookies and cream, and chocolate caramel cup were just a few of the options being scooped up at the Nordbridge Senior Center for their Whoop Up Days ice cream drive-thru.
Basically something we've never really done before, but because of COVID, obviously, we decided to do something different and fun for the seniors in the community. So yeah, it's been lots of fun, and I think for now, it's been really popular.
Kern says events like this are a great way to get the community outside.
So I think a lot of people, even just people in the community, are just wanting to get out with their family, with their kids, and even the seniors, they just want an outing. So it's been really nice to offer that to everyone. So
Vehicles can make their way through the drive-thru behind me to get their ice cream.
and then just go through just like a drive-through you would at like Dairy Queen, and you just pay first and then roll up and then get your ice cream.
For seniors, this fun event meant seeing staff and friends at Nordbridge and then enjoying some ice cream on a hot day.
Come here regularly all the time. Cherry is my favorite ice cream, so I'm glad they had it today.
Nice for me to be able to see the staff because I haven't seen them at all, and so it's fun to see them because they're such a great group of people.
For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
The CFL season may have been cancelled, but minor football in Lethbridge is not. Minor ball with kids aged 8 to 14 put on their pads and have started practicing. BCN's Ainsley O'Reilly explained how not much has changed for them during the COVID-19 pandemic.
My goodness, they are so excited. They're out here in numbers, excited to play. Can't wait to start football.
The Lethbridge Junior Cougars fit into Alberta Health Services safety protocols. As long as they can practice in cohorts of 50 or less, including coaches, parents, and referees, they're good to hit the field. Players excited for one thing.
Being able to hit people again. Like before, when we didn't have pads, we couldn't really hit anyone. It wasn't like authentic, I guess.
Yeah, it was very exciting because I get pretty angry at my house, and so now I have somewhere to take it out on.
Southern Alberta has been exposed to extreme heat warnings for much of August. Players don't seem to be fazed.
It's nice weather, for sure. It's good to get out with your buddies and play a game of football, your favorite sport.
Drink lots of water through the day. Make sure you have enough water and dress like appropriately, not with like pants and stuff.
Lethbridge minor football organizers want parents to know that they will be playing other teams in the region, and the Junior Cougars are back in business.
A lot of people don't know if football is happening. We are having competition. We are having games. Get out there, sign with your respective teams, and let's get out there and have some fun.
For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
A wildfire burning southeast of Penticton, British Columbia, has grown from 250 hectares to around 10 square kilometers. The fire has forced hundreds of people in the southern Okanagan out of their homes and put thousands more on evacuation alert. Evacuation alerts are also in effect for 116 properties in the upper Carmi region east of Penticton and the Skaha Bluffs Provincial Park just south of the city. Officials say another 4,000 could be evacuated if the fire continues to grow. The COVID-19 pandemic made it very difficult for many people to see specialists because so much was shut down. You can include the Ogden family in that group. 19-year-old Aaron Ogden was involved in a serious car accident. He suffered brain damage, a broken pelvis, and a weakened aorta to his heart. Aaron recovered from most of his injuries, except that he needed a stent implanted to strengthen the walls of his aorta. Aaron was to have continual checkups on the stent in his aorta, but could not because of the COVID-19 pandemic. One August morning, Aaron went out for a run and collapsed on the sidewalk. A blood clot allegedly formed at the stent of his aorta, and the clot exploded, clogging the blood vessels supplying oxygen to his organs. Now, he survived for 45 more hours before dying. Joining me now is Aaron's dad, Mark Ogden. Mark, I'm so sorry for your loss. This must have been devastating for you.
I had somebody ask me the other day, like, what's this world going to miss from Aaron? And I just lost it. You know, he was a big presence, and you know, not to have that presence in your life anymore, it's going to be kind of hard. He was kind of annoying at times. You know, he'd be the kind of kid, he'd always say, like, he'd look across the room and say, "What's that over there?" And you'd look around, what? And then I'd turn back and half my plate is gone and it's in his mouth.
Now, when you reached out to specialists to discuss the importance of following up with Aaron and his stent, what were you told?
Originally, when the stent was put into place, the surgeon, the heart surgeon, a very good heart surgeon out of Regina, he said that we're going to have to keep tabs on Aaron. He'll be in Aaron's life for the rest of his career, basically, because it was such a big stint. It was 23 millimeters across. It's like a small garden hose, and there's that much blood flowing through it. This normally only is done for people in their 60s and older, so they only have experience of this being in a person's body for maybe 10 or 15 years, just because they usually would naturally pass on. To do it for somebody like Aaron, who's going to be 50, 60 years with this, he said, we're going to have to keep an eye. So you could expect 1 in 6 months we'll take a CT scan, because that's the only way to really just get a quick look at it. And then after that, we'll probably do every year. I was supposed to have a CT scan in June, and it got canceled because of the COVID. And it was supposed to be rescheduled, but July went by, August, and nothing happened.
You live in Saskatchewan. Have you heard from anyone from the province?
I've had the Saskatchewan Health Authority has reached out, and I've talked with the investigator there. They're going to do an investigation to try to find out what is the specific cause as to why this happened. There needs to be some changes going on in the system, and for so many people that are having their procedures put aside, their checkups being put off, I'm getting so many responses from my posts of people that are really scared.
What message do you have for other parents who may be going through a similar situation?
If you have some kind of a circumstance that, it's supposed to be checked out, well, like Aaron, you would not have known to look at him that there was any trouble. It was impossible to know until that blood clot in his stent burst. There was no way of knowing. And so if you're supposed to have this kind of procedure, any kind that would check up on your son, then do it, push for it, and don't take no for an answer.
Mark, thanks so much for your time today. Stay strong.
Yes, thank you very much.
Tributes are pouring in for a former NHL player who became the face of the Winnipeg Jets in the 1980s. Dale Howardchuk, who was 57, died yesterday of stomach cancer. He played 9 seasons in Winnipeg and became an All-Star. Manitoba Premier Brian Pallister says all Jets fans are mourning the loss of one of the NHL's all-time greatest players. He was certainly an amazing player for the Winnipeg Jets. Environment Canada issued yet another heat warning for our region, and those hot temperatures will be sticking around. Full weather details are on deck. It was another hot one in the city today. Jeanette Rocher is here now with a full look at the weather forecast. Jeanette, I hear that we may see a little moisture in the forecast, which will hopefully cool things down a little.
Yeah, and we could see that moisture start as early as tomorrow. Looks like we are in the clear for this evening, though, with partly cloudy skies tonight. The overnight low, 14 degrees. We could see a southwesterly wind at about 30 kilometers per hour. Not too bad. Nice and breezy for Lethbridge. And then as we get into tomorrow, we're going to see increasing clouds around noon. In the afternoon, 60% chance of showers. We could see a risk of a late afternoon thunderstorm, and even into Thursday night as well, with 60% chance of showers. Our high tomorrow, 30 degrees, and the low for Thursday night at 10 degrees. And as we get into Friday, we're going to see the sunshine again, and it's going to stay for a while. 29 the high for Friday. Under sunny skies, mainly sunny throughout the weekend. Should be a lovely weekend again. 28 degrees is the high for Saturday, 27 for Sunday. Mix of sun and cloud expected on Monday with a high of 27 degrees. And Tuesday should be a lovely 26 degrees with partly cloudy skies. So we are seeing those average temperatures for this time of year, especially as we get into next week. The high average is around 25. We're still above that for now. The average lows this time of year, 10 degrees. The high temperature on record was in 1942. It was 33 degrees, and 1 was the record low in 1950. The sun rose this morning at 6:28 a.m. and our evening sunset tonight, 8:41 p.m. So there you go. Let's take a look at what's happening tomorrow across the country. Now, as we get into the coast here, we're going to see those temperatures back in the teens. Victoria is high 18 only. They could see showers tomorrow. Chance of showers also in Vancouver with a high of 20 degrees. Calgary and Edmonton, risk of thunderstorms tomorrow. High 25 in Calgary, 23 in Edmonton. Calgary could also see those thunderstorms starting this evening. Look at all these heat warnings that we're still having across the rest of the prairies. Saskatoon's high tomorrow, 30, 34 in Regina, and 30 degrees in Winnipeg as well, with a mix of sun and cloud. As we get into central Canada, we're seeing lots of sunshine here in Toronto. 28 the high there. Chance of showers in both Ottawa and Montreal. Ottawa could see some windy conditions as well. 20 is the high there, 22 the high in Montreal. As we look into the Maritimes, we're seeing beautiful weather, lots of sunshine here. Fredericton's high tomorrow, 25 degrees. 23 in Charlottetown, and also Halifax there with sitting at 25 degrees for a high tomorrow. St. John's, Newfoundland could see a mix of sun and cloud, high of 25 degrees. They could see some windy conditions as well along the coast there. So there you go, that is your forecast.
Stats Canada says the consumer price index rose 0.1% in July compared to a year ago. Gas prices fell nearly 15%, air travel prices dropped 8.6%, and prices for traveler accommodations were down 27% as Canadians opted for staycations. In a separate report, Stats Canada says wholesale sales rose 18.5% in June to $62.1 billion to bring them near to their pre-pandemic levels. Apple shares have soared nearly 60% this year, propelling it to become the first American company to reach a market value of $2 trillion. The Saudi Arabian oil company, Saudi Aramco, reached a market value of $2 trillion shortly after it became a public company in December of 2019. Blackberry is teaming up with Texas-based Onward Mobility to launch a new 5G-enabled version of its smartphone. It says the phone will be available in the first half of next year. The Canadian smartphone pioneer has been out of the hardware business for many years, but licensed the Blackberry name to other partners. Onward Mobility will outsource some of the manufacturing of the phone to Taiwan-based Foxconn, but says most of the phones will in fact be built in North America. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 48 points on the day to finish at 16,577. The Dow was down 85 points to 27,692. The S&P 500 was down 14 points to 3374, and the Nasdaq was down 64 points to 11,146. Oil was up 4 cents to 42.93 per barrel. Natural gas was up a penny to 2.43. Gold was up 7 cents to 19.2905 an ounce, and silver was down a cent to 26.69 an ounce. Wheat is at $213 per metric ton. Barley's at $206. Canola's at $4.85, and corn is at $232 per metric ton. Live cattle were up 95 cents to 110.83. Feeder cattle were up 40 cents to $146, and lean hogs were up $1.13 to $52.55. The Canadian dollar was up slightly on the day to 75.69 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, the Blood Tribe in southern Alberta has cancelled all events for the rest of the summer and into the fall. Officials say they will not allow any indoor or outdoor public activities to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The Blood Tribe remains under a state of emergency under a community-wide curfew. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has prorogued or suspended Parliament until the end of September. Political reporter Brian Lilley says the main reason was so the Liberals could shut down the committee investigating the We Charity scandal. Mr. Lilley will have details for us coming up next. As you've heard on Bridge City News, Federal Finance Minister Bill Morneau has resigned, and he says he wants to become the new Secretary General of the OECD. Not like OCD, that's an entirely different thing. This is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. But does anyone actually believe him? To talk more about it is one of our regular contributors, Brian Lilley, joining me once again from Toronto. Brian, isn't the resignation about Morneau really about his involvement in the We Charity scandal?
Bizarrely, this is one of the talking points that the Liberals have been putting out. You know, you listen to their official spinners, the people that go on TV and radio and on all the chat shows. They keep bringing up the We scandal as one of the reasons for why Morneau had to leave. And I would have thought that, you know, if you're someone like Scott Reid, one of these people that represents for the party, that you'd be trying to downplay We. You know, why do you keep bringing it up? Oh, no, he wants to go off to lead the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in Paris. Yeah, that's what this is about. Wants to be closer to his villa. You know, maybe that sort of line. None of us would believe it, and I don't believe Bill Morneau for a second when he says that it was his decision and he'd been thinking about this for a period of time. You know, what's a period of time? 30 seconds? A minute? It's somewhere along those lines as far as I can tell, but look, if We scandal brings down Bill Morneau as the finance minister of the country because he took a trip where he didn't pay $41,000 worth of the expenses while also still voting for the the money that went to we, be it the big contract, the 912 or 544 million, however you want to measure it, or all the contracts that went before it. If that's enough to bring him down, well, guess what, Hal? It's enough to bring down the Prime Minister, because his mother, they spent $479,944 and change to shuttle her around the world, pay her speaking fees, pay her flights, her hotel rooms, her food, all of that. So, if this is enough to bring down Bill Morneau, it's enough to bring down Justin Trudeau. But it's only Bill Morneau who has effectively been fired. He may say he resigned, but he was voluntold to resign, as we used to say in the Army.
Now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made a minor cabinet shuffle, Brian, and made Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland the new finance minister. Many critics are asking, what does Freeland know about finance, and where does she stand fiscally?
Well, what she knows is that she was a business journalist for years. Now, a lot of people might think, oh, business journalist, she's going to be very business friendly. Not necessarily. Freeland worked for Reuters for many years. She was down in Manhattan for many years, financial capital of the world. She was also a regular guest on MSNBC, which, if your viewers aren't familiar with MSNBC, think of it as the left-wing equivalent of Fox News. It is a very left-leaning news outlet. That's fine. They're open and upfront about it, unlike some others, so I have a lot of time for watching MSNBC, quite frankly. But Chrystia Freeland is someone who, that's her milieu, walking and talking and living amongst the Manhattan elites who believe that, well, the wealthy just need to pay more tax. In fact, this is her book. It's called Plutocrats, The Rise of the New Global Super Rich and the Fall of Everyone Else. It normally sits behind me. If you see an open spot in my bookcase right now, that's where that book normally sits. And in this book, she sings the praises of economists like Thomas Piketty and Emmanuel Saez. These are two very left-wing economists from Europe. Saez works out of University of California at Berkeley now. Piketty still advises socialist governments and candidates straight across France. These are guys that believe in tax rates of 70 to 90%. So those are the people that Freeland was looking to for her inspiration in her book. So when you hear the Prime Minister come out and introduce her as his new finance minister and talk about, taking on the 1%, well, that's essentially, they're going back to her book. This is going to be a major change. The government has telegraphed this. They went to the very liberal-friendly Toronto Star about a week or so before we started hearing about trouble with Morneau. There was a piece in the Star, and I raised this because it's important. They went to a very friendly media outlet and said, we want to use the pandemic to remake the Canadian economy.
Wow.
That is something that they're telegraphing that they're doing right now with all of these changes that they're proposing. And look for universal basic income, a tax on your home, higher taxes for the wealthy. All of these things are going to be part of their program in the next couple of years as they dare the opposition to vote them down and then run to the polls on it.
Well, we'll see what happens with the Conservatives and their leadership, which is coming up fairly soon. So we'll find out who the leader is going to be, and then we'll see if there's going to be a non-confidence vote. But we'll talk about that in just a moment here. Now, Brian, the PM has prorogued Parliament till the end of September. Did he not say that this was something he promised never to do before he became Prime Minister? What changed?
Well, the Liberals back in 2010 voted for a motion saying that Parliament should not be prorogued for more than 7 days. Look, you can prorogue Parliament one day and come back the next. There's nothing wrong with using the parliamentary procedure of proroguing Parliament. It's a chance to do a reset. It allows you to do another speech from the throne, reset committees. There are a host of reasons for why governments would do this. The bottom line is that the Trudeau Liberals are doing this to shut down the committees, be it the Finance Committee or the Ethics Committee that are studying the WE scandal, or the committee that the opposition forced on them to review the Canada-China relationship. All of these are embarrassing to the government right now. None of them are generating good headlines. So they want them shut down. It's a 5-week prorogation, but it will be several weeks after Parliament comes back before committees are up and running and holding hearings. So yeah, this is something Justin Trudeau marched against this. I retweeted it on Tuesday. He marched against this idea back in 2010 and tweeted out, isn't it a great day for democracy when even the Communist Party is out marching against prorogation? Well, no, it's not a great day when you're marching with the Communist Party for anything, but, prorogation is a valid political tool, but they voted for a motion that said it shouldn't be more than 7 days. And here he is doing 5 weeks just so he can shut down a committee. His absolute, the absolute gall of this is shocking. This is hypocrisy writ large.
Now, at the end of September, we'll have a throne speech and the budget, which is a confidence vote. Brian, is the Trudeau government looking to spark an election this fall? And if so, will the Conservatives and their new leader be ready?
So the Prime Minister said when he was asked about this on Tuesday, no, I'm not looking to start an election. I don't want an election. I do want to point out that just a week ago, he also said that he had full confidence in Bill Morneau. And I think I mentioned at the time that, well, it sounds an awful lot like a hockey general manager just before they fire the coach. I have full confidence in that guy that'll be leaving any minute now. And so here we are a week later, Bill Morneau's gone. In 5 weeks, are we going to be looking at a government that is fighting for an election? I think it's going to depend on how the polls look. If they're able to shut down the we committees, turn down the temperature on that, bring back some of the support that they've obviously been losing in Quebec. I mean, the Bloc Québécois leader saying he wants an election is a sure sign that the Liberals are falling in Quebec and the Bloc is benefiting. I reported on a poll from Campaign Research last week that showed the Trudeau Liberals losing support. The Conservatives and the NDP weren't rising, but the Liberals were losing support by people turned off by the we scandal. So if they're able to gain back some of that, they may try and chance it and say, you know what, take us on. Either vote for our budget, vote for our throne speech, or face an election. If the polls look bad for them, well, we might see a more conciliatory tone. It'll all depend. As for the Conservatives being ready, they'll have the money. The question is, will they have the organization in place in terms of campaign managers, wagon masters? There's an awful lot of logistics that go into a campaign that unless you've been on the inside of one or watched it closely, you don't realize all the things that go into it. It's much more than just saying, vote for me.
And I'm just wondering as well, what about the coffers? Can the Liberals really afford another election? Apparently, the Conservatives have money that's overflowing right now.
The Conservatives definitely have the money. The New Democrats do not. The Liberals, they're somewhere in between. They're doing okay in fundraising, but not as well as the Conservatives. So the NDP's broke. That's why they'll be easy to, find something to give them to have them back the government in the throne speech and in the budget. But the Conservatives in the Bloc, they're ready to go. I do find it a bit odd though. All this talk of an election, all this talk about studying the we scandal, the Liberals have been saying, we can't be doing these things. That's taking away from governing. We need to focus on governing during a pandemic. And then they shut down Parliament for 5 weeks.
Wow. Federal party members have agreed to find a safe way to hold an election if needed. Brian, what will that look like?
So they're talking with Elections Canada to try and come up with a plan on how to basically do a socially distanced election. It will require, more safety measures when you and I go to the polls is going to be the main thing for voters. But then, parties are going to have to determine, well, how much do they go to your door, Hal? Because as much as it may seem antiquated, having a candidate show up at your doorstep is part of the election campaign. So how do they do it? Do they do it with teams of people the way they have in the past where, on a Tuesday, you've got these 15 volunteers out with the candidate. And on Wednesday, it's another 15 volunteers. And they run ahead and they knock at your door. And if you want to talk to the candidate. So all of these things are being looked at by the parties. Elections Canada is looking at the actual voting procedures and how you do that in a safe manner. That's the easy part. It's everything else that the parties do that's a bit more difficult. And I think that, we'll see over the next few weeks whether they're able to come up with a very concrete plan. I mean, it's difficult. We're seeing that in every single province across the country when it comes to back to school plans. But are they able to come up with something that they can all agree to, that they'll adhere to certain rules, that Elections Canada will be able to implement measures at polling stations and allow us to get to the polls? I was going to say Australia. It's New Zealand has just put off their election for another 4 weeks. due to a resurgence of COVID in that country. And of course, the United States, they've talked about, should we, bounce back the election date? This is something that we've got to deal with.
Brian, the federal Conservatives choose their new leader next weekend. When should we really expect the new leader to be announced, and who is the front runner so far?
Front runners so far, well, there would be two of them, and it will really depend on who shows up where on the first ballot. The two front runners would be Peter MacKay and Erin O'Toole. Now, if Leslyn Lewis shows up in second on the first ballot, well, then all bets are off, and watch for a wild night. All of the results will start to come out just after 6 p.m. Eastern, so that's about 4 p.m. your time in Alberta, on Sunday. Now, I had thought that it was going to be on Saturday. Political parties often try and avoid leadership votes and conventions and such on Sunday, at least while people are in person, because it allows them a day to travel back home. It allows them to, avoid any conflict regarding, church services and such. But in this case, they're just going to start at 6 p.m. Sunday night, Eastern time. They'll start releasing first ballot results. Then they'll go to second ballot, third ballot. It won't go past that. I'm told that we will have a named leader before 8 p.m. Eastern on Sunday night. As I said, if Peter MacKay and Erin O'Toole are doing well on that first ballot, then Leslyn Lewis doesn't stand a chance. If she's in second place on that first ballot, then we start trying to do calculus, I suppose, trying to remember your grade 12 math and sorting out all the different permutations. Derek Sloan doesn't really have a shot at this point. He has no path to victory that I've been able to ascertain. But Peter MacKay needs to be, if he wants to win, I would say he's got to be above 43, 44% on that first ballot in order to be able to win. Erin O'Toole just needs a strong showing and to be in first or second on that first ballot. And the only way that Leslyn Lewis gets it, as I said earlier, is to show up and surprise everyone by topping one of the big guys on that first ballot.
Now, MacKay's not a current standing MP, so one of the Conservatives would have to give up their seat and we'd have to see a by-election.
Or he would potentially run in one of the two by-elections that's open in Toronto. We've got Bill Morneau just resigned. His seat is unlikely to go Conservative. It's been a long time since Toronto Centre was held by the Tories. But just north of that, in York Centre, where Michael Levitt, Liberal MP, he took that seat from the Conservatives in 2015. He's left to go head up the Simon Wiesenthal Centre, which is dedicated to Holocaust issues and the like. So he's gone. Maybe we'll find him go somewhere else if Peter MacKay wins. But you're right, he will need a seat. Or does he go the Jagmeet Singh route and just say, you know what, I don't need to be in Parliament. I'm going to tour the country. Bit more difficult to tour the country in this day and age, though.
Absolutely. We only have about a minute left here, Brian. Let's talk about Governor General Julie Pyatt. A lot of controversy surrounding her once again. The latest include claims she abused her privileges with a government jet, and she has kind of a strained relationship right now with the RCMP.
Yeah, and the strained relationship with the RCMP is one that Rita Hall has vehemently denied to me. They've sent me their talking points on this and say it's simply not true, that Governor General Pyatt really appreciates the work that the RCMP do. The claims about the jet are a bit odd because they don't always say that she's the one on the plane. And then, of course, we've got the fact that the government summoned for her, and you have to wonder, did they send the jet to go pick her up at her cottage so she could fly back and do the cabinet shuffle and prorogation? Bottom line, Hal, is this is an attempt by the Prime Minister's office to try and shove out the Governor General because it would change the channel from the WE scandal. All of these things that we've been talking about, really about stopping people thinking about the government being in a bad way with WE and getting them talking about just about anything else.
And the fun continues. Political journalist Brian Lilly, thanks for joining me today from Toronto.
Thank you.
Climate change continues to be a hot topic of debate. Now, what are some of the causes of climate change? Are the changes to climate cyclical? Gregory Wrightstone likes to discuss climate change. He's a geologist and author of the bestseller Inconvenient Facts, and he joins me from Pennsylvania. Greg, welcome back to BCN.
Oh, great to be back on with you again. It's we're right in the heart of the climate change alarms season now in the summer with hurricanes and fire. So,
yeah, we've seen some of those wildfires in Southern California, Central California again. But at the same time, in Europe, there are record low temperatures in Sweden and Norway. They're actually having frost in July. Now, some people say, well, that's not called global warming anymore. That's why we call it climate change.
yeah, if they were record highs, it would be the front page of the New York Times or any of the big papers that would be running on the news every night. When we see record lows, we hear crickets because they conflate these high temperatures and any catastrophic event that happens to climate change. And that's what they do. They want to instill this climate of fear, and that's really their object.
Let's talk about your passion discussing climate change then, Greg. Why is it so important to debate this?
Yeah, I got into this. I spent my career as a geologist searching various aspects of the Earth's geologic history. But when I started getting into this, it was really a search for the truth. It was my own search for the truth about climate change. And as I got into it, I went back to the base data and looked at the actual data from NASA, NOAA, peer-reviewed studies, UN reports. And what I found was frankly shocking. I found that what we were being told by the UN, by the mainstream media and the like, it just ran almost entirely opposite of what I found the science, the facts, and the data tell us. For example, one thing I always use, everybody thinks forest fires in California are increasing. They're not. The forest fires in California this is just one example, over the last 30 years, have declined by almost 50% over the last 30 years. They declined. You wouldn't know that. Nobody knows that. Now, the area burned has increased, but that's a forest management issue. And we can go on. There was another, this what I call the UN extinction host, where the UN came out with a report 2 months ago that there'd be 1 million extinctions over the next several decades. That would require 20,000 to 25,000 species to go extinct every year. Well, I went back and looked at the exact same data. You know what it's been for the last 30 years? I'm not going to make you guess. Two per year. They're saying there'll be 20,000. There's 2 per year. And that's from the IUCN Red List. That's what the science tells us. And what they're doing is they're trying to instill a climate of fear, and we need an alarmed population to pass otherwise onerous and painful regulations like the Paris Climate Accord. Here in the United States, we have our Green New Deal, $90 to $100 trillion for us here in the United States over 10 years. You're experiencing that in Canada right now with a push for wind and solar that's driving up here.
Well, in single-use plastics too, we've chatted a bit about that too, with Ottawa wanting to implement that, but that's taken a seat, that's on the back burner right now with COVID-19. What about some of these climate change scientists that you butted heads with? They're saying, Greg, you're a geologist, leave the climate science to us.
Yeah, well, I've been recently accepted as an expert reviewer for the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. That's they issue every year a 5-year report. We're in the 6th assessment report. I'm accepted as an expert reviewer in that. I'm a geologist. I'm not a climate science guy, but there's probably 40 different disciplines that are involved in climate change, and this is one of them. And it's a big, big important thing because as a geologist, I look at the big picture. I look at not decades of temperature, a couple hundred years, but I look at centuries, thousands of years, and millions of years of data to show that what we're experiencing now, we're in a 300-plus year warming trend. There's no doubt. We are. That's just a fact. We're in this warming trend, but it looks very similar to many other warming trends in the past that were warmer than what we are today. The last one was called the medieval warm period. And these other warm periods that we saw, this is what's fascinating. I'm working on my new book now, and I'm taking a deep dive into the relationship between the rise and fall of temperature and the rise and fall of humanity and civilization. And there's just a strong correlation during each of the previous warm periods, again, warmer than we are today. Great civilizations rose up. People prospered. Food was bountiful. No one went hungry. It was the cold periods that were horrific. Mass depopulation, starvation, famine. And I don't know if we have time, there's just a great story relating climate change and the witch hunts of the late Middle Ages. 30 to 40,000 witches were burned at the stake and killed during the cold of what's called the Little Ice Age. As it started getting cold, crops failed, famine set in, and they blamed it on weather causing witches. And I've got a chart that's going to be in my book showing the number of witches killed per decade versus temperature, and there's this great correlation. And it's fascinating when people hear that, they go, huh. So I always say, fear the cold. But we're being told, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it can't get more than 1.5 degrees centigrade colder than or warmer than it is today, or we're all going to die. No, we're not. History tells us just the opposite.
Greg, let's talk about the big bucks involved in climate change. It's made Al Gore a multimillionaire. Last report says he's worth over $330 million.
Now, I'm surprised it's not higher than that. I am shocked that it's only $330 million. I don't get angry at Al Gore so much because he's not a scientist. He's used something to make money. It's the scientists that really make me angry that are using this to their own benefit, and frankly, in a lot of cases, lying to us.
Now, in a blog you wrote in May of this year, you mentioned that the Earth has recorded its 600 millionth consecutive cooler than average month. This may go against that popular doctrine of, like we discussed earlier, the global warming.
Oh, absolutely. What they're doing, they being the climate alarmists, are looking at, we're warmer today than it's been in hundreds of years. Well, that's true. Because again, we're in a warming trend. Each decade should get a little bit warmer. But I look at the big picture, again, as a geologist, we're really in some of the coldest period of Earth's history. We're in these glacial periods. We happen to be in a warm, what's called an interglacial cycle between the glacial advances. And the next advance of glaciers is going to be horrific, and it will affect you in Canada the worst. When it comes, we know what happened the last time. Virtually all of Canada was under hundreds and thousands of feet of ice. And it's going to be bad. It's going to be really, really, really bad. Again, fear the cold. And it doesn't have to be an advance of the ice sheet, but just another cold period like the Little Ice Age I talked about with the witch hunts. During that period, it's estimated that 50% of the population of Iceland perished, a third of the entire population of the Earth perished. And if we look also, it's, again, I say this a lot, it's just opposite of what we're being told. We're being told that people are going to die when it gets warm. If we look at excessive deaths, at deaths related to temperature, we find that 15 to 20 times as many people die related to heat, related to cold as to heat. So 15 to 20 times as many people die cold-related deaths as they do heat-related deaths. So it only the common sense person would listen to that, see the data, and say, well, global warming will save lives. When these climate enthusiasts hear me saying that, their heads explode. But it's a fact. It's just a fact.
How far back really should scientists go when comparing temperatures?
We have to go, I think, at least 10,000 years, or even 2,000 years back to what I call the medieval warm period, to find that was warmer than it is today. It's just the common sense person knows that in the Roman warm period, the previous one, the Romans were growing citrus in the north of England. During the medieval warm period, the Vikings in Greenland, there are still Vikings buried deeply in permafrost. And the other common sense thing people really understand, our glaciers are retreating right now. They have been since the early 1800s. As they're retreating, they're exposing archaeological information on farms and villages. They're exposing mature forests that are not. Well, think about that. As this glacier is now retreating, we're seeing mature trees being exposed. It had to have been a lot warmer at that time. It's just common sense things like that that people get. And we can do it for many different things. But if you just look at the last 300 years, yeah, it's been warmer. But I'm a huge proponent of the many benefits of modest warming and increasing CO2. And my philosophy is that we should use all of Earth's resources for the betterment of mankind and do it as good stewards. And that's a great philosophy.
So when it comes to climate change then, Greg, what part of it is really played by carbon dioxide?
Well, carbon dioxide is increasing. The increase in carbon dioxide is due mainly to our burning of fossil fuels. About 6% due to cement manufacture that people don't know. But it's due to us. We've increased, let's just say 130 parts per million to a little over 400. That increase is due to us. It's a greenhouse gas. It provides some warming, greenhouse warming to the atmosphere. I just believe it's very modest and overwhelmed by those same natural forces that have been driving temperature since the late 1600s. And we see, well, the first half of the 20th century had virtually no carbon dioxide driven warming, but yet it warmed at about the same rate as what we have in the post-World War II when we started adding a lot of CO2. Those same natural forces that have been in action since the dawn of time didn't stop in the middle or start in the middle of the 20th or stop in the middle of the 20th century. They're in action today just as they have been, again, since the dawn of time. And it's just common sense. People need to understand that as a geologist, we look at what happened in the past. We say those processes are acting today as they did in the past.
There are actually concerns that glaciers are disappearing from the Canadian Arctic landscape. Your thoughts on that?
I haven't seen specifics about that. There are Canadian glaciers all over the world, again, are in retreat, but the retreat is not accelerating because of CO2. If you look at the glacial retreat, I've got a chart in my book of 169 glaciers all over the Northern Hemisphere, showing that rate's about the same as it was in the mid-1800s, where there was no CO2 driven. And if we look, Dr. Timothy Ball has a study I just looked at in terms of tree line in Canada. The tree line has moved northward 100 kilometers, according to Dr. Ball, over the last 100 years. We can just trace that northward. So it's happening. Yes, welcome it, embrace it. Back before climate science became politicized, those warm periods were called climate optima. They were called climate optima for a reason, because both the Earth's ecosystems and humanity prospered by the warming. Again, food was bountiful, food was plentiful, and it was the intervening cold that was horrific.
Now, in another blog you posted earlier this year, you mentioned a study which ran from 2000 to 2018, which concluded that the United States was already in a mega drought, one of the worst in about 1,200 years. The study was based on tree ring data. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, tree ring data is notoriously horrible for prediction of temperature. But in this particular study, I went and looked at, they predicted this drought, continuing mega drought that we were in the Southwest United States. Well, I went back and looked at the data. Right after their study was published in 2019, we had the lowest drought in the United States that they had ever recorded since they started recording it. So this mega drought, and they knew it. This data was available before they published that, yet they claimed that this mega drought was ongoing into 2019 and 2020. Yet we see the fewest acres in the United States in drought, and zero in the area they said where this mega drought was occurring. They can't. Again, it's a climate of fear. We need a frightened population, and we've got that. That these kids in our schools today are being taught that they're to blame, their parents are to blame, and we're all going to, mommy, daddy, what am I ever going to do? I don't know. People aren't having children because of this. And again, we're being silenced, people like me. I've had personal experience with that, with being silenced. I'm doing it right now. My local environmental advisory committee in my township I live in, it actually made a rule change to prevent me from getting on the committee. They were going to, and we're in the process right now. So they made that rule change to 40 years of charter of the of the township charter. They didn't want me, a science denier, and a radical pro-environment energy guy, to be on the committee. If I was a 28-year-old with a man bun, and I thought the Earth was going to end in 12 years, man, they'd have me on that committee tomorrow. They couldn't get me on their committee fast enough. So what did I do? I immediately launched a Right to Know Freedom of Information Act request to the committee. And we're going to find out what they had to say. It'll be interesting to see the emails going back and forth between each of them, talking about, oh, this is science denier. We can't allow him on the committee. And he wants to do fracking and provide energy. We can't have that. So, that's just happening right now.
Gregory Wrightstone, geologist and author of the bestseller Inconvenient Facts. Thanks a lot for joining us today from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Hal.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.